Hello and welcome to another Pulse-Fired Gaming video. Today we're taking a look at the Hive Fleet. This is a fleet showcase of the Hive from EC3D's Kickstarter, the Terra Conflict. These ships were printed and painted by me on either FDM or resin, and we're going to take a look at them today. When we're done taking a look at them, we'll talk about how we're going to use them in our tabletop going forward here in a little bit. First and foremost, let's take a look at the fighters. There is the Long Fighter. We printed this in FDM because we were busy on our resin printer. And you can see we printed it facing flat against the build plate, so the bottom looks quite poor, but the top looks pretty good. This guy's about an inch. And then the Short Fighter, and I might have these in reverse, but I think I'm not. Did the same way. This is also FDM. You can see the little layer lines in here. But for a fighter that's going to be on the table, I thought this was good enough. So going right along, we have two different ships here. We have the, this is what EC3D calls the Corvette. And it kind of has a, like, almost a Mutalisk feel to it from the Zerg. But I don't really like this Corvette. I think this ship, which is standing for the frigate, is a much better version of the ship that I would consider the Corvette. It's so spiky. This one was printed in a resin on our Elegoo Saturn. It's very cool, very, very fun to print and to handle. I would call this, in my own table, this would probably be the Corvette that we would use, but whatever. What have you. There's plenty of room for lots of different ships in the lineup. This is the EC3D's Destroyer, the big old D on the bottom. I don't particularly like this ship either, but I think it has its place. You know, it definitely has all of the design language that's put out through the whole fleet. This one is also printed in FDM. This is a pretty old print. We do need to redo this in resin to do it justice, but it's one of the two that I don't think I would put on the table myself unless I needed a wide variety of ship classes. All right, now this is the Stalker. This gorgeous ship looks very much like, I don't know, it's got a snake-like, like an asp kind of feel to it. The Stalker is what I would put in as the destroyer of the bunch. And it's just a very lovely ship. This one was done in resin. It's solid, so it's a little heavy. I didn't think to hollow this, but I don't think it really needs hollowing. But that is the Stalker class. Now, we've got two, before we get into the other cool ships we're going to talk briefly about. This is the one version of the transport that was released. We just printed this in FDM. And then here is another version, and this I think is a version. This is the Transport AN in the Kickstarter files, and I think this would much prefer be the one that I would put on the table as a transport. This one is okay. It's got this big old Jay Leno chin on it, and it looks good, and I bet it would look even better in resin. But this one I think is my favorite. All right, so that's the transports. Let's get into the cruisers. First, we have the light cruiser. This ship is lovely. The light cruiser is a fun little ship. It's very pointy. I tried to do, I'm not a very good painter, but I tried to do replicate kind of a Tyranid feel to it, and I think I got where I was going, but definitely lots and lots of room to improve. This is yet another ship that, the reason why this video is coming out so late is we actually had to take time to paint all these, because going forward we weren't going to produce any more videos of our own ships, not just ships that we're producing for orders, but ships for our own that are not painted. We're trying to stick to that. We'll see if we actually stick to that, but we'll see. Now we have the carrier, and the carrier is, it's a little plain, but it works very much as a carrier. We'll show you a kit bash of one that we did later on to fill another fleet role, but this is the carrier. Okay, now let's take a look at the medium cruiser. The medium cruiser is kind of like a big, beefier version of the, right? Yeah, that's the medium cruiser. Man, look at that. The handwriting is terrible. Shouldn't write with with Sharpie. But yeah, the medium cruiser is a gorgeous looking ship. It's got a lot more meat to it compared to the light. Similar length, according to my scaling. I think I scaled these up to, these were scaled up either to 150% or 200%. I'm not 100% sure on that. A little scaling joke there. But that is the medium cruiser. Going right along, we go to the heavy cruiser. Now the heavy, you start to see things that you'll see in the battleship, where it's got more of these exposed ribbed organ areas, and then more armor on different pieces. Yeah. Now we look at the battleship. This is the official biggest ship in the Hive Fleet, and it's got a lot of the little tissuey areas. It's got a lot of places where I would put either weapons or some other projection of some kind. Lots of carapace armor on it, and yeah, this is just an utterly gorgeous ship. Now we did kit bash one that we're calling the heavy carrier, and the heavy carrier is a combination, obviously, of the transport and then a warped version of the carrier. So this is why we call this the heavy carrier, the fleet carrier. We are going in and going to be using the Phaelon rule set from the Full Thrust Fleet Book 2. The Phaelon will be the ships that we use to represent these on the board for Full Thrust. So the Phaelon are their carapace armor, or they've got armor on them. They're unique because they can have multiple shells of armor on them. So you could have a carapace that has more armor that you have to get through before you before you actually do physical damage to it. Where traditionally you only have one row of armor, the Phaelon can have multiple rows of armor. The Phaelon also have a kind of a way to, an early version of, I think maybe they were talking about cloaking, but they called it the vapor shroud, which is something that the Phaelon can use to deflect other weapons coming towards them, but they also limit their ability to react to things. They also have, what is that called? It's the, I'm looking at the Fleet Book 2, and it says Pulsar Batteries, which are like an adjustable, it's kind of like a missile, right? No, it's not like a missile. That is, looking through the book, there's two different weapons that the Phaelon prefer. They have a plasma bolt launcher, which is like, it's a projectile that behaves like a missile that goes out to a specific area and then has an AoE explosion that does D6 version of damage in anywhere that's affected. Like a missile can be, it's affected by point defense, so each successful hit that goes against the plasma bolt can lessen its severity. Their main energy weapon is a pulsar battery, which can be configured in multiple different ways. It reacts very much like a beam, but it has a close, medium, or long range setting that you can set it to on a game-by-game basis. That allows it to basically have one unit or one thing that is determined by its arcs, but then you can choose on a game-to-game basis what class those arcs are, basically. Yeah. So these are the Hive Fleet from EC3D. I want to thank you very much for watching our video. If you like it, feel free to like it. If you want to see more in the future, feel free to subscribe. And if you have any comments about this video or about these ships or about Full Thrust and what we're doing in the future as far as painting, tell us in the comments what you have in mind so we can interact with you there. We've had a couple new subscribers that have been quite active in our videos, and we really appreciate that because it feels like people are actually seeing what we do, and we appreciate that. Thank you very much for watching, and have a great day.